Oh, yes, thank you for that.
And they are both in the 0-1 bracket. We just had to get you get the spicy deck on screen today, even though they're both a little hard out at the moment. Okay, and I believe
It looks like Shawn's keeping his 7. It looks like Turtle's taking. We call Tyler Turtle around here, so if you hear us say Turtle, we're talking about Tyler.
It's reflex at this point. All right.
Looks like he's going to 6. Okay.
And we'll go ahead and get them going. Okay, he's keeping his 6 scry to the bottom and on the play. Now, no 1-drop out of the green-blue Merfolk deck is a little weird. They're running the Curse Catchers and the Kamina Speakers, the new 1 green out of Ixalan that gets bigger when you control another Merfolk. That's really the power of going green-blue. Is it gives you access to Kamina Speakers and the 2-mana Lord.
The new 2-mana Lord, that is Mistbinder, I believe.
I believe you are correct. Nothing fancy like Island Walk. It just straight
+1/+1.
Yep, just straight +1/+1.
Now that is a chart, of course. It looks like.
Yeah, and since Shawn obviously does not have any creatures, he will have to discard.
That, I believe, I'm not sure what he discarded there. It looks possibly like a Grave Titan?
That does look like a Grave Titan to me, and that is the beginning of the spice, as we say.
That is interesting.
Now,
I would say is on the plains.
The biggest advantage that I feel like Tyler has in this matchup is that Shawn is playing blue in his deck, so he doesn't even have to put in work to turn on his Island Walk from his Lords. He just gets to just flat out swing through like it doesn't even matter. Now let's see if Shawn can get something going with this spicy deck. Looks like if I saw correctly, it looks like I saw a Liliana and a Thoughtseizes in his hand.
That is a Kyrie Sanitarium right there. And is that
that's
Footsteps of the Goryo?
That is Footsteps of the Goryo.
And he's going to be getting back that what we believe is Grave Titan, or it might be. Oh no, that is Woodland Primus.
That's a Woodland Primus?
Primus! The Persist creature going to destroy, just take out lands. That card has Persist. Whenever it comes into the battlefield, it destroys non-creature permanent, I believe.
That is spicy.
That is very spicy. Taking 2 here, Turtle.
Now, the question is, does Turtle have access to an Island Walk Lord? He does. That is a Master of the Pearl Trident.
It's not a bad one.
He
just passing here? Okay. It looked like Turtle.
It looked like he was looking for a does this resolve or not from Shawn.
So, taking 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 here.
I think that's actually a little bit more than 7, because the Kamina Speaker on its own with 1 Lord is a 4/4.
No,
7. Or no, yeah.
I got my math right.
I am miscounting my math. That doesn't happen very often.
It does not pump itself.
That is true. That is true. Most of the Merfolk Lords do not pump themselves, thankfully. That would make it a little bit ridiculous. That said, that Primus did put in some work, dropping Tyler all the way from what would have been 4 lands down to a measly 2. There's a Polluted Delta for Shawn. Let's see if he can continue the spice and show us something else pretty funny.
Now, Footsteps of Goryo is one of the more interesting reanimate spells that we have. It does not give haste or anything like that, but it says return target creature from the field to the from the graveyard to the field, then sacrifice it at the end of the turn.
Doesn't it also say non-legendary?
No, it can be legendary.
Okay.
It can be legendary. It's
very, very similar to the card Goryo's Vengeance, which is obviously similarly named.
Except this one is sorcery speed and does not give haste.
Yes.
And it costs 3 mana.
Most people would... Well, Goryo's Vengeance costs...
2.
2.
And is an instant.
And is arcane.
And it only
They're
hits
both
legendary.
arcane. They're both arcane, actually.
They are both.
Both coming from Kamigawa block, which, as anybody that ever played during anything Kamigawa block knows, everything in Kamigawa block was legendary.
You are not wrong. Return target creature card from your graveyard to play. Sacrifice that creature at the end of the turn. So this works really well with Woodfall Primus because Woodfall Primus has Persist. So you get it back when it enters the battlefield. Destroy a land or an artifact or whatever.
Woo! This is a tidy turn for Shawn, able to leverage that collective brutality really well. Choosing to, it looks like, use all 3 modes.
I believe so.
To clean up that Master of the Pearl Trident, duress Tyler to see if there's anything that he needs to worry about, and then also draining him, giving him a little bit more of a buffer.
He's going to be able to get in here with this Woodfall Primus. I believe that is a 6/6 at this point.
That is a big boy, one way or the other. Ooh, Tyler peels another Master of the Pearl Trident, which is pretty good for him. Makes it
5/5. So
makes it so that the Kumena's speaker is actually threatening and not just kind of there.
I'm going to go... They need to fix their life totals here, I believe. Well, no.
Shawn is going down to 9, and there
they go.
They've got Tyler's fixed. He is down to 11. Now, the real question is, does this Woodfall Primus race the Kumena's speaker and the Master of the Pearl Trident? I would venture to say probably. The real question is going to be, does Tyler peel another Lord? Another Lord is probably enough to push him over the top.
Get in there with Woodfall Primus. Tyler's just going to take it. Have him down to 6.
And there's a Liliana. Liliana of the Veil, obviously the best Liliana, pretty much.
Most would say it's the best Liliana.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to argue for any other Liliana. There are some of the Lilianas have their niches. Liliana the Last Hope, in particular, has seen some good play in recent months and years, but it's hard to beat the 3-mana Edict continuous discard, just powerhouse of multiple formats that is Liliana of the Veil.
I remember the first time I played against a Liliana of the Veil, it felt like it was almost you're unable to get out from underneath of it. You just sack a creature and then you just can't play anything for the rest of the game because you just keep discarding it to it. That was not a good draw from Turtle.
That is probably
the worst draw that he can have at this point.
It is definitely up there.
He's
and
going
it's not
to
even
have to block here with...
The question is, does he block with the Lord or does he fire up that Mutavault and try to block with the Mutavault?
Probably the Mutavault.
I noticed Shawn picked up a Gifts Ungiven, which is pretty interesting. This being a Reanimator deck, obviously Gifts Ungiven is pretty good. He can do, I imagine he has Unburial Rights in his deck. So
I would believe so, yes.
Being able to Unburial Rights.
Now, that has Trample as well.
There they go.
What was that pickup for Turtle?
Mutavault. And we are going to game 2.
Game 2, sorry.
With spicy winning game 1. Very, very spicy. Very spicy win out of that. That Woodfall Primus really put in work.
It did.
The fact that card has Persist. What were they thinking?
Basically, Shawn was able to go 3 mana, 5/5 with Trample, destroy 2 of your lands. That is a strong play in any format that you play.
That is a crazy play, especially in a format that is dictated so much by tempo, like Modern. Just being able to being able to have that much of a swing that early in the game pretty much just puts it out of reach. Especially when you have a deck that's very synergy based, like Merfolk.
Mm-hmm.
It's just really difficult to get out from underneath that if you stumble a bit. That's one of the things that people have been enjoying about this green blue, because traditionally you see the mono blue, very clean, runs pretty much all islands and then the mutavaults. And then the occasional, you've got your like Oboro Palace in the clouds, and those mono blue kind of spell lands, you could call them. But for the most part, you run a lot of basic islands.
Mm-hmm. With this list, you don't run that many basic islands.
You don't.
I think
you're running fetches, you're running breeding pools, you run those botanical sanctums, and the advantage that you get really is. There's two cards that really stick out for the advantage, and it's not even really the Mistbinder, the Lord. The two key cards that you get from splashing green are Kumena Speaker,
mm-hmm.
which is basically a wild Nicodle for this deck, more or less.
Sure.
Since pretty much every other Merfolk you play in the deck is a Lord,
mm-hmm.
it's more or less a wild Nicodle for you, which, anybody that's played with wild Nicodles knows that card can get out of hand.
It can be pretty good.
And then also you get, most lists are running Merfolk Branchwalker, which is the 2-mana Explore card.
Is not playing that card, and I believe that is wrong for this list. I believe you should be playing Branchwalker if you are playing green-blue. Because
the power of it coming in as either a 2-1 that draws you a card or a 3-2. It just, for 2 mana, it's just...
I believe, yeah.
It's above curve for this deck. And with a deck like this where you don't have a lot of draw power, pretty much your only draw power is Silvergill Adepts. And that's even if you're still running them at this point. I think you normally trim for this deck. I know you don't run any of the blue devotion cards. Like Master of Wave is not
gone in this list. It is completely gone. I don't know how I feel about that. I guess it's probably right. But
if you're going to dilute and have not just straight blue mana, I can see not running the devotion cards.
I agree.
I feel like the devotion cards are a little difficult to run unless you're running like legitimate split cost
mm-hmm.
stuff. You see a lot of the old mono red decks running like Boros Reckoner because that it still counts as your 3 devotion to red. If you're running this deck where you've got Kumena Speakers that doesn't count towards any blue, and then these lords that only count for 1 blue, most of your lords are double blue, so that's what makes the devotion really appealing. Is you just get to power out gigantic fields with Master of Waves.
Mm-hmm.
This deck doesn't really do that with the Green Splash, so I can see them not running Master of Waves. And I personally think it's actually pretty nice. You kind of run a little bit lower to the ground. You don't really run those 4s. You pretty much top out at 3. Also makes it easier for vials, because you don't have to worry about, do I tick up a vial to 4? Do I leave it at 3? Pretty much the correct play is going to be leave it at 3.
Now we're going to get started here. This is a turn 1 Curse Catcher. It's a pretty standard start for the Merfolk deck. And it looks like he just drew into a Lord.
That's pretty good start.
Pretty good. It looks like he's just going to go ahead and...
Spreading Seeds on the Creeping Tar Pit seems a little aggressive.
I think he should just start playing the Lords and just try to get in there.
I imagine Lord on 2 is probably where you want to be in this matchup, because you're not really... The big thing is you're not really going to beat
that is a Search for Azcanta.
That is the card advantage powerhouse known as Search for Azcanta. You must call it by its proper name, Ethan.
Now, I would be surprised if you didn't...
That is not the Lord I was expecting.
It's not the Lord I was expecting either, but at this point it doesn't really... He has no blockers right now, so it's fine. I do not believe that the green-blue list should be playing this Lord. I believe they have enough Lords that...
Yeah, I definitely think... Because you have normally with your Merfolk deck, you have your Lord of Atlantis, Master of the Pearl Trident, and then Marrow Regery.
Which they have cut for this card. Now, I believe Marrow Regery just has a higher power level. Being able to tap things down. Marrow Regery is
just strictly better. Yeah. Just the access to every single creature I play taps one of yours is just so powerful. It stops board stalls. Mm-hmm. It stops, like, you can use it on lands, so you can. It's just such a versatile card. There's a Cavern of Souls, I imagine, on Merfolk, because why would it be on anything else?
I feel like yes.
There's a Double Lord, so that is a Curse Catcher swinging for 3. It's getting in there, getting frisky. Didn't see what Shawn is looking at on this search for Azcanta trigger. That the Detention Sphere is an interesting card out of his deck. Do you think he's running the Detention Sphere in the main, or is that a sideboard card?
It's probably a sideboard card. It's a good sideboard card, especially for this Merfolk list where you can easily 2-for-1 your opponent. Detention Sphere hits all creatures or permanents with the same name.
Yeah, so you can definitely do some pretty nuts things, like potentially snagging multiple Aether Vials, or if you end up with a start that's particularly one Lord heavy, you can snag a couple Lords with it. Which is pretty good.
It was very good in this particular instance because Tyler was not able to sack that Curse Catcher to counter it because Curse Catcher says instant or sorcery. Mm-hmm. So
that is also true. Having the enchantment-based removal is really good against Curse Catcher, just kind of as a general note. Mm-hmm. Now, the Spreading Seas on the Creeping Tar Pit is actually paying dividends right now.
It looks like
Shawn has 2 Liliana.
Yes.
Neither of which he can cast.
And it looks like he just picked up another Spreading Seas, which I believe will probably go on that Godless Shrine.
I would imagine it goes on the Godless Shrine. It's going to be either the Godless Shrine or the Gaia Reach Sanitarium.
The Gaia Reach Sanitarium is kind of a scary card, especially with what Shawn's trying to do. That is a Kira, sorry.
Kira Great Glass Spinner. It's a pretty good card. Really gives the Merfolk deck a little bit of protection. It's kind of like a taxes card. Makes it difficult to deal with the board.
So this is an attack for 9 here.
Yep, and then there is a Gaia Reach Sanitarium activation. So we'll see what they pull off of this. I imagine Tyler just wants to. It looks like he picked up a Tidebinder Mage. Or Harbinger of the Tides. Harbinger of the Tides. So I imagine he probably pitches the Harbinger. Oh, and Shawn has had enough.
Yes.
Shawn knows when his goose is cooked, and he would rather take Game 3 on the play and just kind of, see if he can get a bit of a better start. I wonder how many payoffs he has in his deck.
I would assume quite a few.
Because Game 1 we saw what I would assume is kind of the nuts. Mm-hmm. Just, get a Primus into your graveyard super early. That chart, of course, did work. And then being able to just, on turn 3, on curve, get back Woodfall Primus, just absolutely crush the resource base of your opponent. And then from there, just kind of leverage that big body. That game, a little bit clunkier, sitting on a couple Lilianas. I almost wonder if he sideboarded into more of a control deck, which would be interesting. It wouldn't necessarily surprise me. I imagine that at least to some degree his sideboard is more control deck oriented than necessarily like different combo pieces. Though you would assume he has different things that he can get back.
I would assume so. I was wondering if he's running the Protean Hulk combo as well in this deck. I don't believe he is, from what I've seen. I think he's just trying to get value off these Goryo's footsteps.
The question is, what other targets does he have to hit?
No.
Ooh, it looks like that is a 6 with a Goryo's footsteps of the Goryo and 2 Lilianas. That is not where you want to be. I definitely think, anything that has more than a single Liliana, you're not really interested in.
Mm-hmm.
And unless you have something really good and really aggressive to start with, I'm just not sure. Going down to 5, I would imagine Shawn's probably a huge dog in this race.
Mm-hmm. Now, another interesting card that he might have is Obsidian Ghost Council, because
that would be an interesting choice. Normally you see the Obsidian in like a traditional or like a Esper Goria's Vengeance deck.
Right. But it would still work the same way in this deck as it would in the Goria's Vengeance deck, because he would be able to
before the trigger for sacking, he would be able to exile it.
And he's already in Esper colors, so he would be able to play it just naturally. Now they're going to go ahead and get started. Turn 1, Creeping Tar Pit for Shawn, and it looks like a Kamina speaker for...
I imagine it's a Kamina speaker. Probably trying to get his aggro on a little bit this game. Try to maybe show... Oh, no, we are wrong.
Catcher.
That was a turn 1 curse catcher again. It'll be interesting to see if Shawn manages to pull Chart a Course. Is it worth it to sack... Ooh, that is a Search for Azcanta. That's pretty good for Shawn. Can't be interacted with by the curse catcher, so it's pretty safe there. The real question is, can he actually leverage the Search for Azcanta this game? Last game didn't really do a whole lot for him, just kind of dead on board with it.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be interesting to see if this game he can actually get something going with it. We'll also see if Tyler continues his spree of spreading seas. Literally everything. Literally everything. Oh, I've been on Shawn's side of the table on that one. It's never fun getting chain spreading seas game in, game out. It just feels awful. Even if you're playing a blue deck, it's just brutal.
Mm-hmm. Now it looks like Tyler is stuck. No, he's just trying to... Sorry, we're on Shawn's turn here. My bad.
We are on Shawn's turn. He's currently resolving a Serum Visions.
Okay.
If you didn't see that one. Looks like he did bin a Liliana off of the Search for Azcanta, which is pretty interesting. He binned it pretty quick, so I imagine he either already has one or realizes he's probably never going to cast it at this rate.
I feel like Liliana the Veil is not a great card in this matchup, in all honesty.
That is a very pretty Silvergill item.
It is. Those are the promo game day promo Silvergills, I believe.
Yes, that is the foil full art. It is a very, very pretty art. Makes me almost want to pick up a playset, but then I would feel obligated to play Merfolk, and I don't think anybody needs that in their life.
Shawn's deciding what to do here. It looks like he kept that card off of the search trigger.
Looks like it was a land. Is that yes, that was a flooded strand. The real question is, how aggressively does he fetch with this? Does he have something that he could play this turn with it, or does he just want to wait on it and try to make any spreading seas that are in Tyler's hand kind of irrelevant?
Well, if he doesn't have to use it right now, I would just say he's going to wait on it.
Looks like he's thinking about it.
He's thinking about something, at least. It looks like he is going to sack that flooded strand.
I imagine he's probably going to take 3 here. He probably wants to get that black source.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there it is. The question is, what does he have to play this turn? Because there's a very high chance that Tyler is sitting on a spreading seas, just based on how these games are going.
I believe Tyler does have another spreading seas in his hand.
That would be what, the 5th in 3 games? That's
a lot of
pretty.
Spreading seas.
That's pretty crazy.
That is a Collective Brutality.
Collective Brutality pitching. Is that an Ashen Rider?
I believe so.
Woo.
Ashen Rider is not a bad one.
That is a pretty good hit for your Footsteps of the Goryo. And Looks like Shawn not going for the duress mode, just going for draining and killing the creature. Can't say I blame him. Gotta try to keep the Merfolk from getting set up if you can.
Now, Ashen Rider says when it enters the battlefield or dies, exile target permanent. So that hits lands as well, and it does almost the same thing as Woodfall Primus. Except it doesn't stick around.
Effectively the same thing. It not leaving you with a body makes it probably a little bit worse, but at the same time, it also gives you the ability to exile rather than just destroy, which is super valuable against a lot of decks. I imagine if he ever runs up against Dredge, he probably would much rather see Ashen Rider than Woodfall Primus. And we were correct. Tyler did have another Spreading Seas for that.
Of course he did.
For that Godless Shrine. It's what we call bad beats.
Now that is a very powerful card. Engineer Explosives on 2. Now that is a very smart.
Yeah, good choice by Shawn. It kind of puts Tyler into a bad situation because any 2-mana Lord that he plays, like for instance, or even that Silvergill Adept that he just played, they're gonna go away.
Most of the powerful cards in the Merfolk deck are 2-drop cards. So
also importantly, all of those Spreading Seas are 2 mana.
That is true too.
So if he goes to pop this at the end of Tyler's turn, not only does he mop up that Silvergill Adept, but he also clears the way for his mana and gets him to the point where he can actually play what I believe is that Liliana that is still sitting there.
I don't know if Liliana's good in this particular situation, but
I mean,
now
he's going to play a second Curse Catcher.
Another thing to consider here is that it would also get rid of his Search for Azcanta.
The question, I guess the real question is, does he have enough in his graveyard to flip the Search for Azcanta?
That is a good question.
Because if he has enough to flip Search for Azcanta, there's a good chance that he just waits, flips his Search for Azcanta, and then from there pops it so that he actually gets to keep the land and keep the card advantage powerhouse that is Azcanta the land.
Mm-hmm. That's really where the powerful...
Yeah, that looks like that's what he's lining up to do. Doesn't look like he's interested in destroying his Search. And I imagine, based on the fact that he fetched the Watery Grave tapped, I imagine that means that his Search is due to flip. Because if he was more than a turn off, I imagine he would have popped it. Because he can't really afford to wait any longer.
And that's exactly what he's going to do.
Looks like that's an Unburial Rites.
It is. It is indeed.
That is a pretty good card right here. The question is, does he have enough mana? Does not look like he has enough mana to pop Engineered Explosives and cast Unburial Rites. But he does have mana available to cast Unburial Rites. Flashing back that Unburial Rites, getting back that Ashen Rider would be really good here.
He needs to be careful about these Curse Catchers, though. I don't believe he has enough mana to...
Doesn't have enough to combat both, but he can get through one of them. And he can make Tyler get rid of both of them, which is very important.
Yeah, might be a good play. We'll see if Shawn does that.
It could just be as simple as pop the explosives, unlock his black mana, and then just play Liliana.
I believe that's what he's going to do.
Because that's also a pretty good line. Liliana can effectively, will at the very least clear away one of the Curse Catchers, and then ties up the combat for one of them. So Tyler is heavily incentivized to get this Liliana off the board right now.
Now he probably is going to put it on. Yes, yeah, he's going to put that.
Yeah, there's really no sense in not hitting the Azcanta with the Spreading Seas there. Letting Shawn untap with that Azcanta is just super dangerous. Now I will say things are getting pretty risky for Tyler here. Because he
needs to be careful.
You imagine Shawn's probably going to untap and cast that Unburial Rites.
I believe he will.
And I think Ashen Rider's probably good enough on this board right now.
It's a 4/4 flyer that exiles a permanent. That's probably a pretty good play. Let's see what...
And even if Tyler manages to play Dismember, which I believe is the only actual piece of removal he's running, the Ashen Rider still takes something with it on the way out the door, which is what makes it super powerful. Like you said, it's kind of that Woodfall Primus-esque effect where like you just get quite a bit of value. Ooh, and there's a Gaia Reach Sanitarium. So now he can get that Unburial Rites through the Curse Catcher easily.
He could have gotten through already. It is 4 off the flashback. That's a Footsteps of Goryo in his hand. So I think he's trying to decide if he wants a footstep or if he wants to...
I guess the real question is, does he want to keep the Ashen Rider? I think probably what the play is if he footsteps it this turn, he can Unburial Rites it next turn, which gets him to take 3 things off the board.
And that's what he's going to do.
And not only does he take 3 things off the board, but then at the end of the day, it still leaves him with the flyer.
It does.
It's a pretty clean play, and it's a very, very timely top deck for Shawn. Also leaves him empty-handed, so he can tick up this Liliana without any worry.
Getting that Ashen Rider.
Okay. Enter the battlefield trigger. Exiles a Master of the Pearl Trident. And he ticks up the Liliana. Everything going about as we expected it to. And then on the way out...
it's going to exile that Curse Catcher.
And now we have a clean board, except Shawn has a Liliana.
Now, I'm a little surprised that Shawn didn't go after that green source, except for that Curse Catcher. It makes sense that he goes after the small threat, but I would try and take Turtle off of his green mana.
I think, based on what Shawn has seen of the deck, I don't think the green splash is really threatening. I think he would rather clear the board so that the Liliana is safe for another turn, because I think right now he's kind of on the ride the Liliana of the Veil to Victory plan. And here we see exactly what we were talking about, getting back the Unburial Rites. He gets to exile that Marrow Reedery, and then I'm pretty sure there's a Marrow Reedery that he played.
I was talking about Shawn's hand. I believe that's a Path to Exile that he has in his hand.
That is indeed.
That is interesting that he went for the Path to Exile there.
I imagine he just went for it so he could tick up the Liliana.
I believe so.
Also, I think Turtle put the Curse Catcher... Oh, he probably sacked the Curse Catcher, which makes sense. I mean, it's kind of a minor thing. I think I would have just let the path resolve.
Well, I believe Turtle had all 3 of his islands or had the 3rd island that was in his deck in his hand. So that is a Harbinger of the Tide. Harbinger. Thank you. That's going to bounce the Ashen Rider back to.
I think bouncing Ashen Rider there is very risky, and it only serves to give Tyler a little bit of a cushion. But now. That's interesting. I would have imagined how much to convert a mana cost in Ashen Rider is it?
8.
8.
8.
Oof. Okay, so Shawn's still a couple off.
Now, I assume we're going to just see Liliana tick down here.
It's probably the safest thing.
Probably fire up this Creeping Tar Pit here.
Ooh, Charter Course. That's a pretty good draw. Did he draw another Footsteps of the Goryo?
I believe.
And a Woodfall Primus? That's pretty good. Tick down. What did he draw?
I did not get... It's an Ashen Rider, I believe. Another Ashen Rider.
Ooh.
Get in for 3.
That's a little rough. He at least got that Creeping Tar Pit in there. Those Creeping Tar Pits have been very, very sad tar pits, not really doing much these past couple of games.
Was that a breeding pool that he just drew? I believe it was. Not drawing well here.
Tyler is on cold nothing. I believe the only card he has in hand is an Aether Vial. It honestly begs the question, do you just play the Aether Vial, or do you Do you feign having something? I think it's probably better to just play the Aether Vial, because you know you're going to get Liliana ticked up on you. It's it's just
your
sitting
things
there.
to play for free if the Liliana's on board. Like,
Also allows you to work around any potential counter magic.
I agree.
Ooh, another curse catcher. That is not
what Turtle wants to see. I don't think anything that Turtle draws in this scenario is going to actually save him. I believe
this is probably not going to end well for the Fishmen. It is probably a slow decline into madness, and madness being losing to the jank.
the jank.
That said, we do finally, maybe, get an Azcanta activated. That first one got spreading seas pretty quickly, but this one is around and looks like it might get to actually do its thing. Never mind. We're just gonna see Creeping Tar Pit. Creeping Tar Pit is planning to go the distance. I think this is probably the game.
I would believe
And there it is. That is the game. The Fishmen couldn't quite get there. Liliana of the Veil proving that she really is just a good card.
She is a very good card.
It doesn't matter what kind of shell you're playing her in. You can play her in Jund or Abzan or throw her in your Death Shadow deck. But really, just play something spicy. Throw Liliana's in the spice and it'll work.
Reason why she's $80. We have about 15 minutes left. We're going to go see if there are any matches that we can put on camera for you guys.
See if maybe we can snag a game 3. Modern is a pretty quick format, so but hopefully we can find something. So we will be right back. Hi, welcome everybody up to the booth. We are actually done with round 2 already. Both of our feature matches were the last matches waiting, so round 1, you're able to get right into round 2 pretty quick. And right now they're actually just pairing up for round 3. So hopefully we'll have a match pretty quick for you guys. It's been an interesting night so far. See, Martyr proc, don't really see that very often. And then the spice that is Footsteps of the Goryo out of Shawn Carroll. It's a treat to watch. Also some tidy dredge piloting. Just pretty good night of Magic so far. So we're actually working on pairings for round 3 right now. We will be right back with a round 3 pairing for you. Hopefully we got something good.